Hello. Today we're going to talk about what the ego really is, according to Carl Gustav Jung. You've probably heard the word ego many times. But what does it actually mean? Why did Jung believe the ego is just a small part of who we are? And how should we understand it in our lives? Open book. What is the ego? In Jung's system, the ego is your conscious personality. It is what we mean when we say, I. The ego is the center of the field of consciousness. It is made up of everything you are aware of, your desires, your goals, your thoughts, your decisions. For example, right now you're thinking, I'm watching this video. I want to understand myself. That voice? That's your ego speaking. It defines where I am, who I am, what matters to me. The ego is our self-image. But, Jung warns, the ego is not the whole psyche. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Water wave ego and the unconscious. Jung divided the psyche into three major layers. The ego, the conscious I. The personal unconscious, your repressed and forgotten experiences. The collective unconscious, universal archetypal patterns. So the ego is like an island in a vast ocean. It faces the world, it interacts with others. But beneath the surface, there is infinitely more that we don't see. How is the ego formed? You're not born with a fully formed ego. It develops in childhood and adolescence, as you begin to see yourself as separate from others. At first, a baby is just a flow of sensations and feelings. Then words appear, I, mine. Later, the child learns to separate their own thoughts and wishes from those of their parents. The ego begins to define, this is me, and this is not me. Building a strong, healthy ego is crucial. Balance scale. A strong or weak ego. Jung wrote that a person needs a strong enough ego to withstand the pressures of the unconscious. If the ego is too weak, a person loses their sense of I, and they are overwhelmed by the chaos of fears, complexes, and archetypes. If the ego is too rigid, it denies the unconscious and loses touch with the deeper, creative forces of the soul. Balance is the key. Don't deny your shadow, your hidden sides, but don't drown in them either. Counterclockwise arrows. Button. Ego and individuation. The ultimate goal in Jungian psychology is individuation. That means becoming whole, becoming your true self. The ego is just the starting point of that journey. Individuation requires us to acknowledge that beyond the ego lies a vast inner world. You begin to integrate your unconscious sides, your shadow, your anima or animus, your archetypal patterns. Step by step, the ego stops thinking it is everything and realizes it is part of something much greater, the self. The dangers of the ego. Jung warned that if the ego becomes inflated, if it believes it is all-powerful, a person becomes arrogant, disconnected from others, and even from themselves. On the other hand, if the ego is too fragile, a person can fall into neurosis, depression, or become controlled by others. Sparkles. Why does this matter? Understanding the ego helps you understand yourself better. When you say, this is who I am, it's worth asking, is this really me? Or just my mask? Just my habit? Jung taught that we shouldn't destroy the ego, but strengthen and develop it, while always remembering there is more beyond it. Clapperboard. Closing. So, the ego is the center of our conscious life. We need it to survive, to build relationships, to set goals. But we can't forget, the ego is not all there is. There is a deeper world inside us. And our task is to connect this I with the greater self. Thank you for watching. Share in the comments, how do you feel about your own I? Is it your true center, or just a mask?